Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Nous allons donc vous montrer maintenant un film réalisé par Terre des Hommes et UNICEF sur un projet de Terre des Hommes au Burkina Faso qui montre donc la façon que Terre des Hommes a de travailler avec les autorités des pays en développement. Voilà, je vous laisse regarder ce film. Merci.
La justice juvénile au Burkina Faso est dans une phase de transformation. Le gouvernement burkinabé a ratifié des normes internationales et se doit de les appliquer. Le ministère de la Justice a donc engagé un partenariat avec Terre des Hommes et UNICEF pour développer des dispositifs de justice restauratrice pour les enfants auteurs, victimes ou témoins de délits. Les enjeux sont nombreux dans cette transformation qui cherche à développer des alternatives à la réponse de la répression qu'est l'emprisonnement vers une réponse de réparation et de réinsertion des enfants.
Dara yi met moy mamne a kama kazin tabe après maman beni parent tum no dara yi ne para ilam tima moy ko musa biga mamu yin ko ma na subiga ton kengro bini am babi mbi hafuta mba ndigal ko ma ko teo kengro bini ma tinya ko ma am tamti mam king tiram pakro bini biga di kanuwa ni ko ma ti yo bre to mam jeti bol para wari kibira tiram tipi anti tipawa ayela mtima mratna ko yina biga iti ina kana le kuma mbi mtima mri to mama kari amnamba ngaya yetum kuma rahmata to panari mam yiki rahmata ba saba yuma mam yiki ndik para ligira ne futa je ken village en lebo rahma ata ba to mam lebo yi village en wawa pour debnen anti tum zapatu tuni ni beo san giliri to ngili to man pire patron azakanore te bonna yema ken to patron te patron wayi no mam ken commissariat te kan par mam bene.
Sixième, l'école était un peu loin de ma maison. Donc j'avais 11 ans à ce moment, j'avais du mal à aller à l'école tous les jours. Donc c'est dans ça que j'ai commencé à feinter l'école. Donc je ne mangeais pas bien. Comme je ne mangeais pas bien, j'ai commencé à voler. J'ai perdu mon père le 30 août 2007. Ma mère était enceinte dans ce moment. Et juste 3 mois après le décès de mon père que ma mère a accouché ma petite soeur. Donc comme j'avais déjà commencé ici à voler là, quand je suis venu ici, je ne peux plus m'en empêcher quoi. Donc j'ai continué. Comme j'ai commencé à décoller, ma mère m'a envoyé à l'internat. J'avais un voisin qui gérait un vidéoclub. Donc tous les soirs, je partais me retrouver là-bas alors que je ne travaillais pas, donc je n'avais pas d'argent. Donc le voisin, qui était tous à côté du vidéoclub là. Quand je finissais de regarder le vidéo, je laisse tout le monde sortir. Et je prends l'escalade le mur, je rentre chez l'autre voisin là. Comme il n'était pas là, je ramassais tout. Il avait son véhicule, son moteur. Le moteur de son véhicule qu'il avait, des papiers s'est déposé. Donc je rentrais, j'enlevais ça un peu chaque jour, je partais vendre. Pour revenir le soir encore au vidéoclub, et quand tout le monde part, je fais la même chose. Jusqu'à qu'on m'arrête.
Il dit qu'il y a des vidéos. Il y a des vidéos. Il y a des vidéos. Marie Lang, ami moi, n'a qu'un petit axe social. On a son main. On a un petit nez comme ça. On a l'air de notre dizaine de humains.
Lorsque les enfants sont arrêtés au niveau des services de police, le plus souvent, malheureusement, les délais de garde à vue ne sont pas respectés pour ces enfants-là. Logiquement, ce délai-là devrait être de 48 heures et exceptionnellement à 72 heures sous autorisation du procureur. Mais malheureusement, dans la réalité, le plus souvent, on n'est pas dans ce délai-là.
Les défis sont nombreux dans ce sens qu'il n'y a pas de texte unique concernant la justice des mineurs. Nous avons différents textes et passes datant de depuis 1968 en ce qui concerne les mineurs en conflit avec la loi et en ce qui concerne les mineurs en situation difficile, extrêmement difficile.
Je peux également relever l'absence de coordination entre les BRPE, je vais dire par là ma brigade, et les commissariats de sécurité publique, notamment en ce qui concerne les références de cas d'enfants impliqués dans les infractions à la loi pénale. Toute chose qui ne facilite pas leur prise en charge.
Après les 5 jours passés au commissariat, on nous a envoyé à la MACO.
Terre des Hommes, avec l'appui de l'UNICEF, accompagne les acteurs de la justice depuis 2010 pour l'application des mesures alternatives afin d'éviter la prison aux enfants. Terre des Hommes soutient l'application des différentes mesures telles que le travail d'intérêt général. C'est une mesure qui consiste à condamner un jeune à exécuter un travail non rémunéré au profit de la communauté en guise de réparation. Il y a la médiation pénale aussi comme mesure qui consiste à rechercher grâce à un médiateur une solution librement négociée entre la victime et bien entendu l'enfant qui a commis l'infraction. Il faut ajouter aussi des mesures de placement dans un centre ou dans une famille d'accueil, juste le temps pour l'enfant d'être dans une formation professionnelle. À cela, ce qu'on peut ajouter, c'est de dire que Terre des Hommes soutient également la prise en charge et la protection des enfants en garde à vue et ceux en prison, mais également des enfants victimes ou des enfants témoins d'infraction. Les acteurs également connaissent des interventions à travers la formation de ceux-ci sur les mesures alternatives. Il y a enfin la sensibilisation des populations afin que celles-ci comprennent que les mesures alternatives à l'emprisonnement ne constituent pas une forme d'impunité, mais plutôt des mesures de protection des droits des enfants qui sont prônées par la loi burkinabé.
Alors, lorsqu'un enfant est arrêté par la police judiciaire, les agents de la police judiciaire établissent les procès-verbal et défèrent le mineur avec le procès-verbal devant le procureur du FASO. Si nous estimons que le mineur peut être condamné à un travail d'intérêt général, nous lui posons la question, est-ce qu'il consent à être condamné à un travail d'intérêt général pour que le travail ne se rime pas à un travail forcé, parce qu'il faut le consentement. Et s'il est d'accord, nous le condamnons à un travail d'intérêt général. Sinon, il y a d'autres possibilités. Il y a l'emprisonnement ferme avec sursis, il y a l'amende ferme ou sursis, il y a le placement, il y a la remise à ses parents ou à une personne digne de confiance.
Mon travail consiste à rendre des visites périodiques aux mineurs pour voir s'il effectue personnellement et correctement le travail auquel il a été condamné. Aussi faire le lien avec sa famille. Suite à cela, je rends des rapports mensuels et en fin de travail d'intérêt général sur le parcours du mineur.
Avant par mon commissariat, fait que béga, au yizama, sukman bihi abone bula mana, man pa tatala man wakano. Mam tosi, mam tosa. Fait que béga la tête de ma hawa. Tu yiz mam, tu mam bom niba. Tu tal mam qui me dit la zone. Tu tal paratiran wa kispara. Tu yiz maman, tu une place mam centre. Tu mam bébé.
Les difficultés, c'est d'abord, pour le travail d'intérêt général, c'est d'abord une famille pour placer le mineur, si le mineur ne dispose pas d'une famille dans la ville ici. Ensuite, c'est où placer les mineurs pour exécuter les services.
Mana centre oui moi. Voyez mam. Wa mizak pour atteindre un bébé né. Aucun man. Lam taras ramti. Ba comme il y a tout matin ba. Même ba ziga yi hawa kasoma. Taras ramti ziga yi mena songa.
On nous a envoyé à la MACO, c'était les hommes qui a suivi. Qui a suivi jusqu'à ce qu'on me libère. Et ils m'ont demandé ce que je voulais faire. Donc j'ai dit que comme j'avais déjà commencé la mécanique, donc je préférais continuer. Ils m'ont envoyé dans un garage. Ils ont payé l'année. Ils m'ont payé une formation de 3 ans.
Les arbres, moi, je suis la boule. Il n'y a pas de problème. La vie,
les responsabilités, bon. Il faut éduquer l'enfant. Il faut l'éduquer. Éduquer en le mettant, en l'envoyant à l'école pour qu'il grandisse, qu'il puisse donner exemple à l'enfant. Tout ça sont des responsabilités. Donc si tu ne peux pas nourrir l'enfant, si tu ne peux pas l'éduquer, c'est vraiment difficile. Pour qu'il devienne plus tard un homme. Au point de vue moral aussi, bon, il faut avoir une morale correcte pour que l'enfant aussi prenne des exemples sur votre vie et qu'il puisse au moins dans la société se comporter correctement.
La justice restauratrice aujourd'hui au Burkina Faso est vraiment un moyen pour les autorités de permettre à sa jeunesse, si elle tombe dans la délinquance, de ne pas récidiver, de pouvoir se réinscrire en tant que citoyen et prendre part au développement de son pays.
Avec l'appui de l'UNICEF et de Terre des Hommes, nous avons procédé à la relecture des textes concernant les mineurs où nous avons abouti à un corps de protection de l'enfance. Troisièmement, c'est comment faire pour que les textes qui sont plus favorables aux mineurs soient effectivement appliqués au niveau des juridictions.
Les enjeux majeurs, en fait, se trouvent à deux niveaux. Le premier, c'est effectivement la nécessité de pouvoir passer à l'échelle. Dans les 45 provinces du Burkina, avoir un tribunal pour mineurs où effectivement les questions d'enfants victimes, témoins et d'enfants auteurs puissent être traitées par des juges compétents, formés, et le fait d'avoir aussi un cadre partenarial.
Dans le plan de politique de la justice, le gouvernement a décidé qu'il y aurait 2 tribunaux pour enfants et des juges pour enfants. Et ces juges vont s'occuper de la détention des mineurs là, afin de les rendre plus brefs et de s'occuper d'eux.
Les changements s'acquièrent par l'appropriation par tous les acteurs de cette nouvelle approche. Premièrement, l'ensemble des acteurs de la justice doivent faciliter l'application de ces mesures alternatives plus rapidement afin de limiter le temps que passent les enfants au niveau des prisons. Deuxièmement, il faut dire que les populations doivent elles-mêmes comprendre que les alternatives à la prison ne constituent pas de l'impunité, mais plutôt des mesures de protection pour leurs enfants. Et enfin, c'est que les politiques elles-mêmes, elles doivent assumer leurs engagements vis-à-vis des normes de protection des enfants.
La sunningen de la tourne de la prison, réussino ma. Kasok runa otum ninge no sulhan wusko.
Good morning to everybody. This is our final day of the Congress, and I congratulate you for being in this place for the last 5 days, which is exceptional. And I would like, before starting the plenary session, give you 2 informations. First, we will have the Arabic translation for the workshop this morning, the regional workshop on Middle East, which will be the workshop number 20B. The workshop 20B, regional cooperation in the Middle East, will be translated in English and in Arabic. Now I want to give you only the list of the room for the 6th workshop of this afternoon. If you can write on the program so that you can choose which workshop you will attend. So, as I did the last days, the workshop 16A about Africa in French, it will be only in French. Room number 4, the French-speaking African countries, je pourrais le dire en français aussi, les pays d'Afrique francophone, ce sera dans l'atelier numéro 4, number 4. For the workshop number 16B, It is a workshop about African cooperation, regional cooperation in English, English-speaking countries from Africa. Room number 2. Workshop number 17. Asia and Pacific. It will be room number 15. It will be only in English. For the workshop number 18, Central and Eastern Europe, in English as well, room number 3. Workshop number 19, Latin America and Caribbean, room number 1, which is this same room where you are now. Workshop number 20A, North Africa, and this workshop will be in French. Room number 5 and 6. You know that it is 2 rooms in the same, 1 room in 2 parts. The workshop 20B about Middle East, the one which will be translated into Arabic and English, room number 7 and 8. And finally, the workshop number 21 about Western Europe will be in the room 18. Thank you very much. Patrice, tu présentes la match. Excuse me, but I thought my colleague was going to introduce Mrs. Aldosari, so I apologize.
Thank you very
so we welcome Mrs. Aldosari, who is from Bahrain. And she is a member of the Committee on the Right of the Child, and she will be the president of this plenary session. Thank you very much for coming, for attending our Congress.
Thank you.
And I give you now the floor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be present here with you today in this last day of the conference. I'm also very honored to be chairing this session with the esteemed speakers from different countries who will be highlighting some of the international mechanisms and regional cooperation aiming at improving the institutional system of juvenile justice and promoting respect for the fundamental rights of children. Among those mechanisms are the UN conventions, and one of the most ratified UN convention is the Convention on the Rights of the Child. This morning, Professor Kirsten Sandberg will be sharing with us 2 instruments the Committee on the Rights of the Child make very good use of to ensure that all rights of all children are guaranteed. These 2 instruments are the optional protocol number 3 on the Convention on the Rights of the Child on a communication procedure, and the second one is the concluding observations by the Committee on State Parties' reports in relation to juvenile justice. Before I hand in the floor to Professor Kirsten, I would like to introduce her. She is from Norway. She was elected the chairperson of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child in May 2013. She has been a member of the committee since 2011. In Norway, she is Professor of Law at the Department of Public and International Law in the University of Oslo. She has published extensively in child law and children's rights. Among other things, she has co-edited a book on the implementation of children's rights in Norway. She has served as acting justice in the Supreme Court of Norway. I'll give the floor now to my colleague and friend, Kirsten.
How do I turn on the mic? I have no idea about this. Is it on? Can you hear me? Ah, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for this nice presentation, and thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm sorry that I've not been able to be at this great congress during this week, because I've been very busy chairing all the sessions in the committee, who is in session at the moment in Geneva. Anyway, I'm happy to be here today, as I said, and I'm happy also to see quite a lot of people here, even though it's Friday morning. And I've been given 2 topics to speak about. The one is the optional protocol number 3 on individual complaints, as we often call it, or on a communications procedure, as it is called officially, to the convention, and also the concluding observations that the committee submits in relation to juvenile justice. So then, what is the 3rd optional protocol? First, it gives children the right to submit individual complaints to the committee in Geneva. And second, it also provides for an inquiry procedure for grave or systematic violations of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, or its 2 first optional protocols, the one on the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography, and the one on children in armed conflict. So the first is this individual complaints mechanism. The second is it also provides for an inquiry procedure for grave or systematic violations of the CRC, or did I say this? Or its 2 first optional protocols. But states may opt out of this second procedure, and since I have 20 minutes for these 2 topics that I'm going to speak about today, I'll concentrate on the individual complaints when I talk about the OPIC, as we often call it, the OP3, or the OPCP, many names for this one. So why did we need this 3rd optional protocol? It's been very important to give children the right, the possibility to seek redress for violations of their rights. They have not had this possibility before at the international level. And giving them this right, this opportunity in the optional protocol, means that they are considered rights holders in line with adults. So it means they should not be seen as any less worth as being subjects of rights or rights holders than adults are. And this is a way of underlining that. Also, all other human rights conventions, all other United Nations anyway, human rights conventions, had already a complaints mechanism. And it was then only a natural thing to show the equal value of children's rights by giving children as well the right to send individual complaints to an international body. And of course, this also has to do with holding states accountable for children's rights. It is a stronger way of doing this than just having the reporting procedure that we have been using ever since the convention itself entered into force almost 25 years ago. So it means that the states are being held accountable to each individual child who can send a complaint, and not only to the committee and then doing we don't always know what in the meantime until they come back to the committee again. So ratification is a way to hold states accountable in a more direct way. And it's also a reinforcement when a state ratifies, it's a reinforcement of their commitment to children's rights, and one might say the dedication to fulfill these rights. And what we do hope with this optional protocol, this individual complaints procedure, is not that we will get thousands of complaints from children all around the world in all the states that have ratified the convention. What we would like the states to do is to sort out things in their own house, to do it domestically, so that we would like this communications procedure to influence states not to violate children's rights. And if there is any doubt, and if the children want to complain about something that they don't think is right, that their rights have been violated, they should be able to do so nationally under their domestic law. They should not have to go all the way to Geneva, which might be quite a long way to think of going for a child. So this is really also a way of encouraging states to establish domestic complaints mechanisms for children. I'll say a bit more about this because there is a condition or a requirement for children if they are going to complain to the committee in Geneva. They have to exhaust domestic remedies, which is a well-known term for lawyers, maybe not so well-known for everybody else, but it means that before complaining to the committee, the child has to do everything which is possible for the child, use all the accessible means of complaining or having the case settled or solved within the country. And that means normally that the child will have to take the case to court, because that is a domestic remedy which is mostly available to people in countries, and it should also be made available to children in this respect, because otherwise they will not be able to exhaust the ordinary domestic remedies. So children must in some way have access to courts. And then the courts need to be not operating in the way they normally do with adults. We need to have child-friendly processes in these courts. And we also need speedy procedures, because if a case would sometimes take 2 years to go all the way through, for instance, 3 instances of a court system, that is too long for a child to wait to have his case settled. So you need child-friendly procedures, and they must be speedy. But also, it need not be the best way for a child to have his or her complaint solved taking the case to court. So it's much better if the case could already be solved through some kind of complaints mechanism at the administrative level in the country, like, for instance, a children's ombudsperson that we really encourage all countries to have. That kind of complaints mechanism for children, which is well known to all children and where children find it easy to go, which is easily accessible to all children. The protocol also says that if the application of these remedies is unreasonably prolonged or unlikely to bring effective relief, then the child can go directly to Geneva after all. So the countries, the states, really have to do their best to make the procedures, including the court procedures, available to children in a speedy way. Time issues to be mentioned here. Of course, the facts that the child would complain about would have to have happened before the child turned 18, because this is a convention for children, and that means it's only up to the age of 18. But also, it's important to know for the states, if they consider ratifying, which we really hope that all states do, that it's only going to be valid, this complaints procedure, for facts that have taken place or incidents that have taken place after the third optional protocol entered into force for that country. So if a country ratifies in July this year, it would go into force in October, and then it would be things happening after October of this year that would be possible to take to Geneva for the child. And also the complaint must be submitted within 1 year after the domestic remedies have been exhausted. So the person who may then be an adult, if this happened before he turned 18, still he cannot wait for years. Who can complain? Of course, any individual child can complain, a group of children can complain, but they need to be identified or identifiable. Because there was this idea of also having more like a possibility of class action or group complaints on the behalf of sort of all children not getting the education they should in the rural area of some country, but that was not accepted by states, so they have to be identifiable. Somebody can complain on children's behalf, but they then need the consent of the child. If they don't get that consent or don't don't have the possibility to get that consent, they have to justify that they act on the child's behalf. Somehow they have to justify that. Often it would be that the child is so young that it's impossible to give a consent to this kind of procedure. I think it's necessary to mention that there are provisions in the optional protocol to avoid manipulation of the child by adults. The rules of procedure for the committee says that the committee shall take all appropriate measures to ensure that the child is not subject to improper pressure. And the committee may ask for additional information on this issue. Because there is really a fear, I know among states as well, that parents or other adults may use a child in order to serve their own interests. So this is something that the committee has to look into. And the committee may also decide to decline to examine any communication which it considers not to be in the child's best interests. So there are some safeguards in this respect. The complaint will be sent to the state with a 6-month time limit for a written explanation. We would hope the states to react before 6 months have passed. The committee may ask the child or the state for additional information. We may decide to have an oral hearing that might be done in Geneva, which might be difficult for the issue of because of resources, financial resources. We might also decide to do it by video conferencing, possibly by going to the country. We may also receive documentation from a lot of other bodies. It may be UN bodies, NGOs, any state relevant bodies, etc. And we may consult with independent experts. All of this is in our rules. The outcome of the complaint will be that the committee gives views like all the other UN bodies that can deal with complaints. We can't issue a binding decision. That might be a comfort to the states to know. All the same, we do expect the states to follow up on the views that we give in this respect. And we also will expect them and assume that they will be followed up by other states, because this will then be the interpretation of the convention. So the committee really calls on all states to ratify the optional protocol, the third optional protocol, in order to strengthen children's rights. We really hope you will do that. So far there are 14 states that have ratified, and a few more to come as far as we know. Then to our concluding observations on juvenile justice. First, we always ask states to build a system of restorative and rehabilitative juvenile justice fully in line with the Convention, with international standards, and with the Committee's General Comment number 10 from 2007 on children's rights in juvenile justice. If we don't always formulate it like this, that is at least the content of it. So it's a restorative and rehabilitative juvenile justice system. The age of criminal responsibility. We very often say that states should raise that age to an internationally accepted level. And in our general comment on juvenile justice, we say that 12 years would be an internationally accepted level. We know that this is too low in many ways. We think we would like to look into this issue once more. And I would also like to say that we have asked states for a higher age than 12 years. Normally, we don't say anything about what the internationally accepted level is in our concluding observations. But when Hungary reversed their criminal age, it was a setback from 14 to 12 years. We found it very reasonable to ask them to raise the age from 12 years back up to 14 years. Even for the most serious crimes. Of course, we would like it to be even higher, but that was what we thought we might hope for. And also, we asked Indonesia in 2014 to consider raising it to at least 14 years of age. And the reason we could do that was Indonesia had a new law, and they call it themselves a paradigm shift into making restorative justice for children. And then we thought in that regard it would be really a good idea to raise this age to at least 14 years. Then about the courts, countries are asked or recommended to have specialized juvenile courts focusing on restorative justice. Judges should be specialized and receive appropriate education and training. There have to be a sufficient number of defense lawyers trained in children's rights and juvenile justice. There need to be trained police and prosecutors. When I looked into our concluding observations from the last year and some from before that as well, I couldn't see that point, but we have it definitely in our general comment, and I mean, we definitely think this should be done, so I think we should think about putting this into our concluding observations more often. And we also say that children should have free legal aid at an early stage of the procedure and also throughout the legal proceeding. Diversion is something we do recommend and encourage and urge the states to use. And we formulate it like this, that the states should promote alternative measures to detention, such as diversion, probation, mediation, counselling, or community service, wherever possible. And I would like to add, I know that Ms. Renate Winter had been talking to you earlier on in this week about diversion, and we would like it to start already at the police station. So this is not only as an alternative to detention, it is an alternative to getting the child into the court system at all. And also children should have access to adequate rehabilitation and reintegration programs, and that is whether they've been into detention or are in diversion. Detention of children is something we are very concerned about, and not least pre-trial detention, which many children are subject to for a long time. And we always say that this should only be done, all kinds of detention, only as a measure of last resort and for the shortest possible time, even in cases of very severe crimes. I think we might consider going even further and really encourage states not to use detention of children at all. But this is my personal view. We've not discussed this yet in the committee. Where detention is unavoidable, we ask states to ensure that children are not detained together with adults, which is a clear rule. Detention conditions should be compliant with international standards, including having access to education and health services, safe drinking water, sanitation, etc. Things like that are mentioned. And children should have the opportunity to maintain regular contact with their families. So this is really what I can say about our concluding observations. We would really like our concluding observations, I mean, they are more detailed than what I was able to put up here now, but we would also like them to really be specific and detailed to each and every country. On the other hand, states have asked or requested of the committees to make their concluding observations shorter. That means we have to leave out quite a few details. So this is a dilemma for us and for the other human rights committees. But we would really like to strongly recommend you and urge you to follow all the recommendations from the committee and also what is in the general comments on juvenile justice. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Professor Sandberg, for utilizing the time very well. And if I may just recap on what Ms. Sandberg has just told us. So she spoke about the third optional protocol, which enables children to seek redress for the violation of their rights. States are held accountable for the fulfillment of children's rights in the state party. The optional protocol encourages states to establish domestic mechanisms before a complaint is taken to the Committee on the Rights of the Child. It also encourages state parties to establish an ombudsman's office within the country. She also expressed the fear that adults may use the child to complain or abuse the child. The committee will conduct adequate investigation to make sure that the child was not used. On the concluding observations, the committee stresses in the concluding observation for state parties to have restorative and rehabilitative juvenile justice. And states are encouraged not to use detention except as a last resort. Our second speaker is Ms. Eliana Bello, and she will be presenting the call for a global study on children deprived of liberty, which was launched last year, and aiming at gathering statistics, sharing good practices, and formulating recommendations for effective measures to prevent the violations of children's rights in custody. Ms. Bello is a colleague and a partner to the Committee on the Rights of the Child. Since 2010, Eliana has been the Executive Director of International Secretariats of Defense for Children International, DCI, in Geneva. Previously, she worked in the Middle East, the Balkans, and the Central America in various capacities with NGOs and with the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In her present capacity, she collaborates closely with Terre des Hommes Foundation, especially with the Interagency Panel on Juvenile Justice, IPJJ, where she is a member of the steering committee. Ms. Bello, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aldoseri. So I have the pleasure to be here, and I would like to really thank the organizers of this Congress, Terre des Hommes, and the Swiss government for organizing this major event on a topic which is very dear to Defense for Children International, which is, of course, juvenile justice. This is something that we have been focusing on since many years. Back already in 2003, Defense for Children International launched a campaign called No Kids Behind Bars. And since then, we have been, let's say, a bit obsessed by the issue of children being deprived of liberty. So that's why I'm glad that I will have the chance to introduce the call for a global study on children deprived of liberty, which is becoming now the global study on children deprived of liberty. The idea of this study started back in August 2013. At that time, DCI discussed with the Committee on the Rights of the Child of the opportunity of having a study on children in the juvenile justice system. So it was focusing on the criminal justice system. But then after a series of discussion and also, particularly taking into consideration the remarks and comments made by several experts and the committee itself, and discussing with other NGOs, we thought that an opportunity to have a study, a global study as such, is not happening every time, and we should have been looking not just at children deprived of liberty in the criminal justice system, but to look into all forms of deprivation of liberty for children. So including, of course, children in administrative detention, children who are in prison for immigration detention, for health reasons, for care, for security in prison with their parents, etc. So we changed, let's say, this appeal, this call, to become the call for a global study on children deprived of liberty. We gather a huge number of NGOs around this call, international, regional, and national NGOs. Now we are around 80, so it's quite an important number. Not only those particularly working in the area of deprivation of liberty or justice for children, but all those that, like us, share the idea that children shouldn't be locked behind bars. The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has been extremely supportive, and it's, of course, thanks to them that we, and of course to the lobbying efforts that we've been doing throughout these months, that in December last year, so just 1 month ago, at the UNGA, at the General Assembly in New York, the third committee, the one who is dealing with human rights, in the Child Rights Resolution, mention the request to the Secretary General for such a global study. The CRC committee sent a letter to the Secretary General in May 2014 highlighting the need of such a study. Then we had some events in Geneva and in New York. An official launch in March, then an expert consultation in Geneva in June, and high-level event in October, so at the time of the meeting of the third committee in New York, and then finally the resolution which was approved in New York in December 2014. I will show you I don't know if it's very clear, but this is not the full list. It's still to be updated because we've received others very soon, but it's a huge list of signatories to this call. So what is the study aiming at? The study will aim to collect data and document the scale of deprivation of liberty of children, assess the situation of children in detention facilities, the implementation of applicable international standards, and the effectiveness of existing approaches, and identify also good practices and steps to be taken at national, regional, and international level to meet international obligations. We've heard throughout all this Congress that we have enough standards, norms regulating juvenile justice and also, I mean, in a broader sense, detention, but we lack implementation. This is what is missing in many countries, and this is what we should look at. The idea of the study, as I said, it's really to look into deprivation of liberty in all its forms. So the study will take into account children in criminal detention, children in immigration detention, children confined due to disability, children in need of protection, children detained for national security reasons, in prison with their parents. If you think about it, during the last 25 years, since the adoption of the UNCRC, the issue of child detention has never been adequately addressed and continues to lag behind compared to some other areas. Detention of children it's a serious issue, extremely serious, not only by violating basic international obligation, but also exposing each and every child who is detained for whatever reason to further human rights violation. And with immigration detention, which is on the rise, apparently there is more regression than improvement in the overall situation. The fundamental obligation of states under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child have clearly not been understood, accepted, or acted upon. Another indicator is the number of times states have been urged by the international human rights mechanisms to end inhuman practices that constitute per se violation of human rights, the use of death penalty, which in some cases is still applicable for minors, or torture, or life imprisonment, corporal punishment. All these issues have not really, despite the fact that they've been highlighted and recalled many times in the concluding observation also of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. The underlying concern compared to other situations is that children in detention are, let's say, in the care of the states, in the hand of the states. So whatever happened behind bars is actually something that is sometimes not seen outside, and not everyone is aware of what is happening once a child is behind bars. We have to think also of the negative impact on detention on children. Detention is fundamentally harmful for children. It jeopardizes their development and consequently that of society. Children deprived of liberty are exposed to increased risks of abuse, violence, acute social discrimination, and denial of the right to education. There are also studies that prove that there is the incidence of recidivisms when children have been deprived of their liberty, and the fact that in many cases they do not have access to proper education. This is really compromising their future and the reinsertion into the society. So while detained children are at risk, let's say, of being deprived of their basic rights, we also have to look at the fact that detention, deprivation of liberty, might have also an economic impact, especially in the short term. So alternatives to deprivation of liberty have proved to be cost-effective in the long term. The study will collect data, quantitative, qualitative, disaggregated data, while also, as I said, show good practices, because there are good examples all around the world, and this will be, let's say, a way for states to share what they've been able to achieve, and support also those that have more difficulties to implement international norms related to children in detention. I'd like to mention a few examples. For example, in Canada, the Toronto Bail Program provides migrants who have been released on bail with financial and social support if they comply with strict requirements. The program has achieved impressive compliance rates with less than 4% of individuals absconding, and has saved the Canadian government approximately, it's a quite huge amount of money. So this is a good example. This has to be shared with all other states, and this is something that could be, let's say, easily implemented and drastically, if not completely, reduce the number of children in immigration detention. In Cambodia, so the other side of the world, the community-based drug treatment program provides drug users with voluntary, cost-effective and rights-based drug treatment and care services in their home communities instead of detention-based drug treatment. And we know that the number of children that are imprisoned because of drug use or drug abuse, it's increasing worldwide. In Hungary, Hungarian law prohibits immigration detention of unaccompanied minors and allows detention of families with children only in limited cases. The government finances a shelter for 14, 18 years old unaccompanied children, which provides legal aid, education, and other services. In the Philippines, in Cebu City, the community-based prevention and diversion programs divert children from the formal justice system by providing mediation, counseling, and individualized intervention. The program has helped cut the number of children detained by half. In the Netherlands, the restorative justice program, ALT, allows first-time juvenile offenders to avoid criminal charges Offenders complete an individualized alternative punishment that can include apologizing the victim, counseling, and community services. In Tajikistan, the Juvenile Justice Alternative Project diverts children towards community-based solutions, provides counseling and other support, and promotes alternative to imprisonment. Children and their families work with local community center staff to address the causes of criminal behavior and ensure that the child's practical education and psychosocial needs are met. A 2008 evaluation found that fewer than 3% of participating children reoffended over a 4-year period. And finally, in South Africa, the Child Justice Act of 2008 encourages diversion of children in conflict with the law away from formal court procedures with a focus on restorative justice. Diversion can include life skills training, therapy, family group conferences, and pre-trial community service. Since 2002, the number of children in prison has decreased dramatically from over 16,000 to less than 400. So this is an exceptional and really powerful, good practice that should be shared, all of this, with the rest of the world, let's say, and this is why we want to have that, we wish to have that in our study. I would like to thank all those that have been behind the idea and supporting the study and lobbying for it. As I said before, the Committee on the Rights of the Child, here I have some example of the letters of support, the letter from the CRC, from the Council of Europe, and from ENOC, which is the European Network of Ombudsmen for Children. But then we had a lot of other support behind, more formal and informal. There have been some organizations who have been playing a crucial role, among them the organizer of this Congress and also our colleague from Human Rights Watch, who have been extremely active before and very much now at the time of starting, let's say, this new phase, because we have concluded the first phase and we have succeeded in having the study mentioned in the UNGA resolution, but now the real work will start. We hope that the Secretary General will take this into consideration as soon as possible, because normally the study should be presented at the UNGA in 2017, so in 2 years, more or less 2 years' time from now. And we know that this kind of studies needs a lot of work. We have previous experience of studies on children, the one from 1996 on children in armed conflict led by Grasa Machel, and the one on children, on violence against children of 2006. Led by Professor Paulo Pinheiro. And this has been a massive effort, but these two studies for children really mean something and generated changes and are considered as milestone for really, as I said, create an impact on children and guide the lobbying, the advocacy, and the work also of the different bodies, I mean UN human rights mechanisms that are working at following the recommendation that came out from both studies. Now the NGO community is continue to lobby to have an independent expert, which we wish should be, at the same level as it was for the two previous studies, in order to adequately oversee the study. For us, it is crucial that an external expert be appointed, as the privation of liberty cuts across existing mandates and is of concern to a wide range of UN and other actors. So not just, for example, those mentioned in the resolution, which are the main ones, let's say UNICEF, OHCHR, UNODC, the SRSG on violence against children, the SRSG on children affected by armed conflict, and also the Interagency Panel on Juvenile Justice, but also other UN agencies, for example, UNHCR, who is working a lot on ending immigration detention for children, or also ILO, WHO, IOM, etc. So we really believe that we need someone leading this whole process at the highest level possible. And of course we need states, we need the support of states, and we call upon states to really support the implementation of the study by contributing actively with information and financial resources. Together, we are sure that we can secure that sound data on the situation of children in detention is obtained, and that the study does not remain an end in itself, but will act as an instrument of change towards the concrete realization of children's rights. Here, if you want to have more information, there is a web page, childrendeprivedofliberty.info, and there you have all the material in English, French, and Spanish, and this advocacy brochure on children deprived of liberty. There are some examples also in the lobby. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eliana, for this very informative presentation on this study as an instrument to improve the institutional system of juvenile justice. A quick recap on what Eliana has just mentioned. She said that mechanisms enhancing juvenile justice are available in countries, but the problem is with the implementation. This is what is lacking. She has also told us about the negative impact of detention on children, and most importantly, abuse, denial of the right to education, deprivation of family care, and other rights. I would also add stigmatization as a huge violation of right. And she is also taking the opportunity for your presence here in this conference, coming from different countries, to call upon the states to collaborate for the implementation of this study. Our next presentation will be on the International Panel on Juvenile Justice, and our speaker is Mr. Fabrice. Mr. Fabrice Crigou from Terre des Hommes. Of course, I'm not going to introduce Mr. Fabrice. He is the host and he is the organizer of this whole conference. Please.
Thank you, Madame President. Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Il m'a été donc demandé de venir vous parler ce matin de l'actualité du panel interagence sur la justice juvénile. Alors, pour ceux d'entre vous qui ne le connaîtraient pas, le panel interagence est un organe de coordination, donc interagence. Il a été créé par la résolution 1997-30 du Conseil économique et social des Nations Unies et il n'a pas d'existence juridique propre en dehors de celle de ses membres. Donc, ces membres aujourd'hui, ce sont les principales agences des Nations Unies et organisations non gouvernementales qui travaillent dans le domaine de la justice juvénile. Parmi ces organisations, il y a Defense for Children International, l'Association internationale des juges et des magistrats de la jeunesse et de la famille, l'Observatoire international de la justice juvénile, l'Office des Nations Unies pour la drogue et le crime, le Bureau du Haut-Commissariat des droits de l'homme, l'Organisation mondiale contre la torture, le Réseau d'information sur les droits de l'enfant, le CRIN, le Comité des droits de l'enfant, le Département des opérations de maintien de la paix des Nations Unies, le Fonds des Nations Unies pour l'enfance, UNICEF, le Programme des Nations Unies pour le développement et bien sûr la Fondation Terre des Hommes. Je me permets de prendre le temps de nommer une par une chacune de ces agences pour leur rendre hommage. Hommage parce que, en leur sein, des professionnels, experts et passionnés se battent pour améliorer la condition des enfants en contact avec les systèmes de justice. Et cela ne ressort malheureusement pas à travers les lettres que nous connaissons ou à travers leur logo. Ces organisations ont de plus des représentations ou des activités dans l'immense majorité des pays du monde. Le mandat du panel est la coordination du conseil et de l'assistance technique fournie aux États. Cette assistance technique peut prendre des formes très variées, mais elle se concentre principalement autour de deux types d'activités. Celles qui sont mises en œuvre directement dans les systèmes de justice et les projets et produits communs proposés par le panel. Cela signifie qu'ensemble ou individuellement, ces organisations, dans les pays dans lesquels elles interviennent, travaillent aux côtés des institutions nationales et de la société civile pour réformer les systèmes de justice vers cet idéal par ailleurs atteignable, que représentent les normes et les standards internationaux de la justice juvénile. Les projets proposés par le panel sont nombreux. Certains d'entre vous connaissent d'ailleurs peut-être déjà, en connaissent peut-être déjà d'ailleurs certains. Donc son site internet www.ipjj.org qui rassemble un vaste choix de documents sur la justice juvénile, sa newsletter aujourd'hui interrompue, ou encore son roster d'experts qui est actuellement en suspens. D'autres produits moins connus du panel offrent aux professionnels de la justice des outils pour les aider à réformer leur système. Je pense par exemple aux 10 points sur la justice pénale développés par Penal Reform International, qui rappellent les 10 priorités que les acteurs de la justice juvénile doivent mettre en place pour prendre en charge effectivement et positivement les jeunes en contact avec les systèmes de justice juvénile, ou encore le guide UNODC IPJJ appelé les critères de conception et d'évaluation des programmes de réforme de la justice juvénile, qui fournit des recommandations très complètes sur la façon de concevoir des programmes de justice juvénile efficaces et participatifs, ou encore le compendium d'instruments internationaux relatifs à la justice juvénile que vous voyez sur ce slide et qui a pour vocation de rassembler un maximum de normes et d'instruments qui s'appliquent de façon contraignante ou non contraignante aux États membres des Nations Unies. Le compendium est disponible en français, en anglais et en espagnol et nous l'avons mis sur la clé USB qui vous a été distribuée au début de ce congrès et qui se trouve aussi sur le site internet de la Fondation Terre des Hommes. Ces outils sont des exemples typiques du travail réalisé en coopération entre les membres du panel. Ils sont réalisés par des experts, ils sont faits pour être exhaustifs et accessibles pour les professionnels de la justice juvénile. Les membres du panel cherchent aujourd'hui des solutions pour faire perdurer ces outils. En effet, le panel connaît actuellement des transformations profondes. Car, comme vous le savez peut-être, le mandat du secrétariat du panel n'a pu être renouvelé pour des raisons de restructuration budgétaire. Le panel, qui a perdu énormément avec le départ de sa coordinatrice Séverine Jolia, a décidé de continuer son combat pour les droits des enfants dans les systèmes de justice. Le défi pour les organisations membres va être désormais de trouver la structure adéquate pour remplir ensemble le mandat d'assistance technique aux États proposé par la résolution 9730 et de faire remonter le thème de la justice juvénile haut dans l'agenda des problématiques internationales. Les réflexions actuelles de son Assemblée générale se concentrent autour d'un système de présidence tournante et différentes solutions sont envisagées pour faire profiter le public du site internet du panel, mais également du roster d'experts mis à disposition des États ou des organisations actives dans le domaine. Enfin, des projets de plaidoyer communs sont envisagés pour continuer à essayer d'attirer l'attention des décideurs et de l'opinion publique sur l'approche réparatrice et respectueuse des droits de l'enfant que les États devraient adopter. Un dernier mot enfin pour conclure en vous invitant à regarder cette photo faite dans le centre de détention pour enfants de Gaza City. Elle me rappelle que nous, organisation de la société civile, nous consacrons beaucoup d'énergie à rappeler aux États qu'ils devraient assurer plus de coordination entre leurs membres et qu'ils devraient allouer suffisamment de ressources humaines et financières à la justice juvénile. En conséquence, nous, organisation de la société civile et agence des Nations Unies, nous avons le devoir de redoubler d'efforts pour assurer l'union de nos forces et une meilleure coopération pour la cause que nous combattons et qui est celle des droits de l'enfant. Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Thank you, Fabrice, for this informative presentation on another mechanism to reform and improve the juvenile justice system. Fabrice has shared with us the components of the panel, the different partners, including NGOs, and of course its mandates. Thank you very much. And now we'll go to our last but not least speaker, Mr. John Orlando. Mr. Orlando is Terre des Hommes delegate in Panama. He is Vice President of Doctors of the World in Switzerland. Previously, he worked for Médecins Sans Frontières and Médecins du Monde. In 2001, he joined Terre des Hommes as head of delegation in Colombia. Then assumed the position of head of programs of Latin America. In 2008, he started a pilot project on restorative juvenile justice in Nicaragua. Mr. Orlando has a solid expertise in the systems of juvenile justice and urban violence prevention. Today, he will be sharing with us a project to develop officially recognized online training on juvenile justice. The floor is yours, Mr. Orlando.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Chers membres de la table, Mesdames, Messieurs, c'est un immense plaisir pour moi de vous présenter aujourd'hui en avant-première un projet de formation spécialisée qui commença dans l'esprit de plusieurs personnes qui sont présentes ici en 2008 au Nicaragua autour d'un excellent café centra-américain. Il y avait Jean Zermatten, Atilio Alvarez, Victor Herrero et d'autres. Et on se disait, ça serait quand même intéressant de pouvoir créer une formation spécialisée, certifiée académiquement de niveau universitaire. Et aujourd'hui, grâce à un fonds de la Fondation Terre des Hommes, ce qu'on appelle le fonds Innovation, qui est lui-même alimenté par les fonds de la coopération suisse, de la DDC, ce projet est en train de voir le jour puisqu'il démarrera dans sa phase test à la rentrée académique de cette année. Je propose de regarder une petite vidéo de 7 minutes dans laquelle les 3 principaux partenaires parlent un petit peu de ce projet. C'est pas grave, je peux. Ça marche pas. La vidéo ne fonctionne pas, donc on va improviser. Si j'arrive par contre à utiliser les slides, c'est pas grave. Je vais vous raconter. C'est ça, avoir fait du théâtre nous permet des fois de nous sortir de situations un peu comme celle-ci. En attendant que nos volontaires, que je remercie d'avance pour leur travail de toute la semaine, rétablissent la liaison, je vais vous parler globalement de la formation. Donc cette formation aura un niveau de certification selon les standards de Bologne, qui sont les standards qui sont utilisés dans la majorité des universités européennes. Elle se veut une formation spécialisée pour les différents professionnels de la justice. C'est une formation qui, comme je vous disais tout à l'heure, dans sa phase test, sera principalement en espagnol, mais on espère rapidement, au plus tard pour la rentrée 2017, disposer de la formation en 5 langues, qui sont l'espagnol, le portugais, le français, l'anglais et l'arabe. La formation est une formation modulaire qui se compose basiquement de 3 modules, toujours rien, de 3 modules, un module en tronc commun qui permet où sont définis l'ensemble des standards, la Convention des droits de l'enfant, Beijing et autres, qui sont des standards pour l'ensemble des pays. Un module à la carte qui sera construit en fonction des demandes spécifiques d'un pays, d'une unité de pays, d'une région, et le module de certification qui est bien sûr obligatoire du moment où un diplôme suppose la signature d'une université comme celle de Genève dont je vous parlerai, enfin dont on verra j'espère tout à l'heure dans la vidéo puisque c'est un des partenaires, suppose un travail aussi pour les participants. Mais là aussi, nous avons voulu, puisque la formation s'adresse à des professionnels qui seront dans une pratique et qui n'ont pas forcément le temps et qui ont un temps limité pour réaliser un travail de 50 ou 80 pages, comme souvent les formations continues demandent, on va travailler sur une formule qui est bien plus simple, puisque le travail final sera construit, le produit final, le livrable, comme on dit, sera un produit sur la base d'un article, un article spécialisé de 3 à 4 pages. Et pour cela, on va aussi, dans le programme de formation, offrir de la technique, comment on écrit un article, avec des experts qui ont l'habitude, depuis le monde académique, d'écrire des articles. Comme en plus je n'ai même pas une copie du PowerPoint, donc je suis complètement en train d'improviser, mais voilà, vous ne m'en voudrez pas. Et pour faire mieux, voy a pasar al español, así para que los traductores también tengan un trabajo adicional y me ayuden en esta improvisación. No, paso al español porque, como decía, la fase test está dirigida específicamente para las personas en habla hispana y portugués o las personas que entiendan el español. Y quiero hablar aquí de los 3 partners principales que están iniciando este programa, que son el Instituto Internacional de Derechos del Niño, que hasta hace poco dirigía Jean Zermaton, el Centro Interfacultario en Derechos del Niño que la Universidad de Ginebra acaba de crear y la Fundación Terre des Hommes, de la cual, bueno, ustedes ya creo que conocen quiénes son. Estoy intentando imaginar el slide y creo que con eso mi presentación está terminada. No sé si el video lo tenemos listo. A ver. No pasa nada. Os cantaría una canción, pero soy muy mal cantante. Obviamente no tengo la calidad de oración poética que tiene Atilio Álvarez. Entonces no soy la persona más adecuada, pero si hay algún voluntario que quiera cantar algo, bienvenido. Si no, propongo tal vez que pasemos, si María estás lista, y tal vez volvemos después sobre el video, ¿sí? Si la presidenta está de acuerdo.
I think that is an excellent idea, Orlando.
Thank you.
Okay, so now comes the most important and most difficult part, I would say, of the whole conference. And Ms. Marie Wernham will summarize the presentations with all the discussions and the outcomes of the extensive discussions during the workshops that took place in the afternoons during the whole 5 days. She will present to us the cream of 5 days deliberations. And if I may just introduce Ms. Wernham, she is an international child rights consultant specializing in policy development, training, research, evaluation, and advocacy. She has worked in over 30 countries with children, NGOs, UNICEF, and the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child on many topics, including juvenile justice. She has produced a number of training manuals and practical toolkits. She has conducted child justice training with police, probation officers, social workers, and government officials in many countries. She has also undertaken child justice research in other countries. Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am here on behalf of the Congress Synthesis Committee for the workshops. So in 30 minutes, it will not be possible to summarize everything that happened during your hours of intense conversation over many days. But we have been working hard, our small and merry band. We have been meeting every evening. We've been reading the reports from the workshop. We've been trying to pull out just 1, 2, 3 key points per workshop. We didn't finish our discussions until late last night. The presentation you're about to see was put together 5 minutes ago at the front of the room. And the words that I'm about to speak were written at 5 o'clock this morning. So apologies if there are any glitches. Okay, let's see if this works. Perfect. Here we go. I am a child. My name is Mari, Marietta, Amal, Fabrice, John, Joao, Xianmin, Beatrice, Bolaji. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? Am I an ethnic or sexual minority? Am I indigenous? Am I living or working on the streets? Do you even care? Do you understand? As a boy or as a minority or as a street child, I am overrepresented in the justice system. As a street living child, I miss out on your clever diversion and restorative justice measures. There's nobody to pay my bail excuse me, or call a lawyer. And I don't want to tell you where my family is for a family group conference because I ran away in the first place. Spare a thought for me in your plans and projects. As a girl, it's apparently my fault for being sexually abused, and I should be criminalized and even locked up for my own protection, for my word not being strong enough against his word, for being forced to sell myself just to make it through the day. As a boy, nobody talks about the sexual abuse that I suffer. It is taboo. My brain is still developing. I take risks. I overestimate reward and I underestimate risk. I'm sometimes like a car with only the accelerator pedal and no brake. I can become a remarkable person, filling the world with music and love and a cure for cancer. But my reasoning skills need help to develop. I need to learn how to take responsibility. I need to learn from my mistakes. Please don't kill me for them. Don't lock me away for life without parole, for an indeterminate time, or at the pleasure of the president or somebody else who I don't know. A year for me is like 6 or 7 years for you grown-ups. My perception of time is different. I experience isolation and torture differently. Please help me. Don't hurt me. I've been hurt enough in my life already. In some ways, I may look and act older than I am, but it's only on the outside. I have to act tough to survive. Please raise the minimum age of criminal responsibility. If you're not sure of my age, or if I can't prove it, please give me the benefit of the doubt. Assume that I'm a child. I certainly am on the inside. Understand where I come from, who I am, my culture, family, extended family, friends and community. Understand what helps me and what harms me in these relationships. Whether you're a judge, a lawyer, a police officer, social worker, psychologist, probation officer, doctor, NGO worker, or anyone else, protect me. Become a part of my support network. Help me to grow. Understand my past. Help me in my present. And guide me towards a positive future. Work strategically with the media and social media to sensitize everybody about my situation, my rights and my needs, families, communities, professionals, and the general public. Make sure these messages reach right into the deepest, remotest rural areas. To do all of this, you will need to work together as a team, joined hands. You need to be trained together, have the same goals, have codes of conduct that you comply with, have mutual respect for each other. And for me, whatever my contact with the law, whether I'm an offender or a victim, after all, let's face it, I'm usually both. Learn not only about the technical stuff with your head, but change the attitudes in your heart, put it into action through your hands. Make your systems as efficient and smooth as possible, so you can spend more time helping me and less time on paperwork. Please don't make me keep telling my story again and again, moving me from place to place. I'm confused and vulnerable enough already. Provide me with a one-stop shop where I feel safe and listened to. I need you to be professional, accountable, but above all, human. I have a vision that one day I and all the children in the world like me will be treated fairly, sensitively and compassionately, with the same high standards that they call international human rights standards and norms. I have a vision that the processes that I have to go through and the people that I meet at this difficult time will be child-friendly. I have a vision that to get to this wonderful, warm place, different justice systems will work together in clever and innovative ways. That the good bits of the traditional justice systems in my village and of my people will be acknowledged and integrated with the modern systems. Traditional and formal systems need to work together towards the same vision. They need to leave, both of them, they need to leave behind the practices which aren't compatible with this vision, like a butterfly shedding its cocoon. You might find it useful to better define what you mean by traditional, customary and non-formal and informal justice. But maybe this isn't so important, seeing as we want to create something new and integrated together. Just make sure that the time you spend on your theories doesn't take away from my realities. The butterfly is still beautiful no matter what it's called. I know that it will take time to achieve this vision, but for my sake, please make sure that step by step, wing beat by wing beat, you keep moving forward in the right direction. I hope that I never get to meet people like you, as lovely as you are. I hope that you can get political will on your side and improve my social, economic, educational and cultural situation and that of my family and friends so that I never have to come into contact with this scary thing that I don't understand, laughingly known as the so-called justice system. Please, please do all that you can to keep me away. Primary or universal prevention, as you would say. Get better at identifying and reaching me when I'm particularly at risk. your secondary or targeted prevention. If you fail in this, and believe me, it will be a failure, then reach me quickly the first time I make a mistake to stop me doing it again. This is your tertiary or specific prevention. Above all, please, please help keep me away from the escalator that leads to my life being further damaged or even ruined. The escalator that leads to detention. Divert me whenever and however you can to your restorative processes and outcomes. If you can't keep me away altogether, then make sure that your system is flexible and that your measures and interventions don't automatically have to lead one way only, regardless of my particular circumstances. If I get into trouble or if somebody hurts me, the first person I see will probably be a police officer. I can't ignore him or her, and neither should you. Please make sure they know how to act. Just 30 minutes ago, they were arresting a man with a knife or a gun, adrenaline pumping, maybe even scared for their own lives. You can't expect them to suddenly act differently with me unless you show them how and help them. Don't pressure them to get a confession at all costs and then be surprised when I complain of torture. Hold them accountable, yes, with systems in place, but work with them and support them before blaming them for everything. Although some of my cousins live in urban areas and slums, I live in a village hundreds of miles away from your specialised police units. They're no good to me out here, although they're great if you have them nearby. Specialisation is important, but all your police need initial and ongoing training about how to engage with me. And I do mean engagement, not enforcement, as a first step. These police officers need both competence and compassion. My first meeting with them should be an opportunity to help me, not a problem. I am all the risk factors you've been looking for. Make the most of it. I have come to you. If you've done your jobs well, then in nearly all cases I shouldn't end up in detention at all. You should make it as hard as possible to put me here, particularly before but also after sentencing. Detention has to become the most difficult, the most complicated, awkward and annoying thing for professionals to apply to me. It really shouldn't be so easy. It should be the absolute rare exception, not the default norm. But even if that is the case, even in the ideal warm future that I imagine, where I do not end up here, there will still be some of us children who do end up in detention because we are so troubled and our problems are so complicated that we have done truly terrible things to others. And imagine what has happened to these peers of mine to get to this stage. In these relatively tiny few extreme cases, the facilities of detention should be small and intimate, with a good ratio of experienced, compassionate, patient, well-trained staff and mental health care professionals. Separate me from adults and even from older children. Don't put me in detention within detention, isolation or segregation. Help me maintain contact with my family and my friends and my people. Have well-resourced independent monitoring mechanisms to check on me, and safeguards so that I can talk to prison monitors without being beaten in reprisal. If this doesn't happen, I will continue to be humiliated, raped, beaten, staring at a blank wall, alone, isolated, rocking myself towards a sleep that doesn't come, killing myself or being killed, all in the name of your beloved detention. If this doesn't happen, then continue to cry and weep at the photos of me in the lobby in your rich countries as well as the poor. End this culture of repression and impunity. For God's sake, sound the alarm. You want to count me. You need better data. Just be sure what you're counting and why. Is it in my best interests? Will it ultimately help me and protect my rights? Don't try to compare your own numbers with those in other countries. We children have been counted in such different ways that it's not really that useful. If you're just starting on the data journey, then learn from the mistakes of others who've already been down this road. I hear there's going to be a global study. Sounds good. Try and contribute if you can. You're spending an awful lot of money turning me into a criminal by scaring, degrading, humiliating, and even torturing me at the moment. You're giving me excellent vocational training in crime, my apprenticeship supervised by the best inmates the criminal justice system has to offer. Stop. I may not have a great education, but even I know this is not very sensible. Review your spending. Move your money away from detention and invest in much more in prevention, diversion, restorative justice. They tell me that there is a far-off country called Peru where I can find some clever software, a concrete tool for state planning of juvenile justice budgets. That sounds interesting. The world is changing. I'm getting more and more mobile, migrating within and across borders in search of better opportunities, with or without my family, or displaced by conflict and disasters. It may not be my own government that needs to take responsibility for me. I'm so vulnerable in these situations. If I get into trouble, please keep me with my family and friends, and work hard to find a solution in my best interests. International instruments exist, but they need to be ratified by more countries. In crisis situations, work towards at least the minimum standards, things that can be put in place on the spot, like guidelines for security forces on simple restorative justice. Try to better prepare countries before it reaches a crisis situation. Protect me from revenge once the conflict is over. I'm sorry if I've upset you. I didn't mean to bring you down. After all, you're here. You came from all over the world. You're listening to me and to each other. The bad and the sad things which have happened to me, which are happening to me, and which will happen to me in the future, it doesn't have to be that way. Focus on the butterflies. Share my vision of international norms and standards. Many of you have already helped me so much every day, in so many ways. Thanks to you, I found a way forward. Thanks to you, I am one of the few who never got on the escalator, who turned their life around. Mine is a message of hope, of thanks. Let us be inspirational and visionary. Let us show the world what is possible. I am a human being. I believe, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that we are all born free and equal in dignity and rights, that we are endowed with a spirit of conscience and reason, that we should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. I am a child. I deserve the best you have to offer me. I am a child. My name is Bernard, Fabrice, Amal, Mari, Joe. And with your help and guidance, I fill the world with music, with love, and with a cure for cancer.
Mary, I'm sure you could have gone presenting for another hour and you would still have kept our full attention and devoted. Thank you for an inspiring, innovative, and so rich presentation. You have captured it all. Thank you. And before we go back to Mr. Orlando, can I ask, please, Mr. Sanjay Gupta. I'm also improvising now on the program, just like Mr. Orlando. Please allow me. Mr. Sanjay Gupta, he is the director of Chetna NGO, Delhi in India, and he has a message from the children of India to deliver to us. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, ma'am, and thank you for the opportunity. I have come with the message through this newspaper, which you have already seen, called Balaknama. But before I have to read this message, I have been conveyed to say that you all listen properly, with carefully. So I will say hi, and you will say hello. Hi. Please be loud. Hi. Hi. Okay, the message goes. Message from members of Barte Kadam, a federation of street and walking children, empowered by NGO Chetna from India. Dear delegates, we the member of Federation of Street and Walking Children, Barte Kadam in India, been apprised by the World Congress on Juvenile Justice System in Geneva by our mentor NGO Chetna. We request to discuss and apprise us following. Why juvenile justice system do not acknowledge our presence? Why we are not counted in census to have appropriate program for us? Why the entire juvenile justice system watch us helplessly when they see us everywhere on the streets, begging on streets, and walking in various eateries? Why juvenile justice system do not coordinate with each other? Our suggestions are, please must consult children and invite their perspective in consultations like this. Punish those who are part of juvenile justice system and inactive. Maybe humbly request to stop their salary if they are not working. Give us functional schools, caring parenting, caring authorities, and opportunities to hear. We are not begging charities. We are demanding our rights. And with this, I end this message. But again, I have been prized to do one little more exercise to say how the system will work hand in hand. Once I'll move my hand like this, please clap one. And when I say like this, then clap one. And please follow my hand so that we see how coordinated we are. Okay, here it goes. Please loud. Yes, this is the coordination. And if we work like this in coordination, I think we will achieve the objective. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. And please convey our well wishes to all the children in India. And can we go now to Mr. Orlando? We have the monitors on.
Avant le message, c'était maintenant c'est donc a priori on devrait avoir quelque chose.
C'est un grand plaisir pour moi de vous annoncer que 3 institutions se sont mises ensemble pour lancer un nouveau certificat d'études avancées en justice juvénile. Ce sont la Fondation Terre des Hommes et de l'Enfance, l'Institut international des droits de l'enfant et le Centre interfacultaire des droits de l'enfant de l'Université de Genève. Pourquoi un tel certificat? Pour qui? Comment et quand? Pourquoi? Eh bien, tout simplement pour répondre aux besoins très souvent relevés et répété par le comité des droits de l'enfant, mais aussi par les observations des gouvernements eux-mêmes qui savent qu'il faut de la formation pour les professionnels. Comment? Eh bien, nous allons utiliser le e-learning, ce sera une première, et tout le certificat se passera par e-learning. Pour qui? Pour tous les professionnels de la chaîne pénale qui interviennent pour les enfants en conflit ou en contact avec la loi, quand nous espérons au plus tôt, si possible, fin 2015, en tous les cas, début 2016. Bienvenue à toutes et à tous à ce certificat.
La mission de Terre des Hommes est centrée sur les enfants et leur communauté. Et Terre des Hommes s'engage à protéger ces enfants. Terre des Hommes s'engage à protéger tous les enfants, mais en particulier les enfants les plus vulnérables. Nous défendons le droit de ces enfants, quelle que soit leur origine, quel que soit leur statut, parce qu'à Terre des Hommes, nous considérons justement qu'un enfant est d'abord un enfant avant d'être autre chose, avant d'être un migrant, avant d'être parfois aussi en conflit avec la loi. Un enfant reste donc un enfant, même s'il a commis un délit, même s'il entre dans une procédure judiciaire à cause de ce délit. C'est pourquoi Terre des Hommes s'est engagée depuis près de 20 ans dans le domaine de la justice juvénile en contribuant à transformer les systèmes de justice et pour faire en sorte que la condition particulière des enfants en conflit avec la loi soit de mieux en mieux prise en compte. Aujourd'hui, avec le lancement de cette formation post-graduée en justice juvénile, nous poursuivons notre engagement en faveur du changement des systèmes de justice et en faveur de la prise en compte de la situation particulière des enfants dans ces systèmes. Cet engagement, nous le poursuivons aujourd'hui en partenariat, d'une part avec l'Institut des droits de l'enfant et d'autre part avec le Centre interfacultaire en droits de l'enfant de l'Université de Genève. La formation proposée vise à des changements substantiels et durables dans les pratiques judiciaires qui doivent toujours garder en ligne de mire l'objectif principal qui est celui de l'intérêt supérieur de l'enfant, même si cet enfant a commis un délit. Les impacts attendus sont ambitieux. Il s'agit d'éliminer les pratiques nocives et de faire en sorte que les bonnes pratiques de prise en charge des enfants en conflit avec la loi soient de plus en plus intégrées dans les systèmes. En tant que directeur de la Fondation Terre des Hommes, je vous invite à nous contacter si vous avez des questions sur cette formation et je me réjouis d'ores et déjà de vous y accueillir.
Proposer une formation en justice juvénile avec 3 partenaires illustres, Terre des Hommes, l'Institut international des droits de l'enfant et le Centre interfacultaire en droits de l'enfant, tombe vraiment à point nommé. En effet, on sait qu'il y a beaucoup d'enfants qui sont emprisonnés à travers le monde, à peu près 2,5 millions, et puis il y a un nombre très considérable de professionnels qui travaillent au contact des enfants privés de liberté, qui doivent apprendre de nouvelles compétences, acquérir de nouvelles connaissances pour pouvoir être efficaces, non seulement dans la réhabilitation de ces jeunes, mais également dans une perspective de protection des droits des enfants, de ces jeunes gens qui sont privés de liberté. Et puis, proposer une formation dans ce domaine en justice juvénile aujourd'hui tombe vraiment à point nommé parce que il y a l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies qui a proposé qu'à partir de l'année prochaine se déroule une grande étude globale sur les enfants privés de liberté, reconnaissant que cette catégorie de personnes, non seulement on sait bien peu de choses à leur propos, de leur contexte de privation de liberté sur le plan national, mais en plus qu'il y a probablement beaucoup de choses à faire pour améliorer leur sort et faire en sorte qu'ils bénéficient des mêmes protections que beaucoup d'autres populations adultes qui sont privées de liberté. Donc, magnifique projet que nous espérons vous allez faire avec nous en vous inscrivant, en suivant nos cours et nous allons pouvoir bénéficier notamment de spécialistes vraiment de renom du monde entier dans notre carnet d'adresses, de nos institutions, de nos collègues. Vraiment, ce sera un projet passionnant.
La realidad en materia de niños en todo el mundo cambia. No solamente no son ya los mismos niños los que debemos atender, defender, intervenir, sino que también es distinta la respuesta y los grados de soluciones que se va dando en las distintas sociedades ante esos problemas. Por eso es fundamental la formación permanente. En esta materia, como en muchas otras, el que se queda con la formación universitaria que recibió o la que creyó que era una formación adecuada a la época que se sancionó la Convención, por ejemplo, se ha quedado al costado del camino, la historia sigue avanzando. Por eso la formación permanente, de modo accesible, serio, profundo, es un imperativo necesario, absoluto para todos los que trabajamos en esta materia. Con alegría vemos que la Universidad de Ginebra incorpora en el Centro Interfacultades de Derechos del Niño toda la experiencia del Instituto de Droits des Enfants y que se lanza a una formación accesible, profunda, como decíamos, con la cual colaboraremos con mucho gusto.
Je crois que tout a été dit avec des très bonnes paroles. Vous avez retenu l'adresse où vous pouvez nous écrire pour toute information et vous aurez certainement rapidement des nouvelles sur le démarrage de cette formation. Sur la clé USB, il y aura aussi la petite présentation où il y a quelques petits éléments techniques. Et voilà, je vous souhaite une bonne fin de journée.
Thank you very much, Mr. Orlando. Finally, we have the presentation. Thank you. And I would like to thank everyone now, the experts on this panel. Thank you for excellent presentation. And Mr. Boutin would like to make a comment.
First, I want to thank Mrs. Aldoseri for being the chairperson of this morning session. And I would like also, I think I will express the feeling of everybody here. I would like, frankly, to thank Mrs. Vernam for the way she has been giving us the conclusion, the synthesis of this Congress. There was no better way to express what we have been doing than to let a child speak. So thank you very much, Mrs. Vernam. We are very sensitive to your... Just a practical information. In the list of workshop I gave at the beginning of this session with the room number, there is a small and slight change, please. Can you note so that there is no time lost to look for the room? The workshop number 20A about North Africa will be in the room 7 and 8 instead of 5 and 6. The workshop 20B Middle East, translated into English and Arabic, will be in the room 5 and 6 instead of 7 and 8. Is it clear? I speak like a teacher, but I'm sorry, I think to understand. Okay. I remind you that the objective of this regional workshop are to consider that nowadays we have to consider to think in terms of South cooperation and not only North and South. So you have some region of the world, Latin America, in some part of Asia, in some places you have some regional cooperation which become efficient. It has to be developed. And such a Congress is an opportunity to try to imagine what could be made to improve the cooperation between countries of the same language, the same level, economical level, the same history, etc., etc. So please try to develop, to imagine what could be mutualization of maybe weak capacities, but mutualized, it is a strength. So please try to imagine what could be developed in your region, in the world. Thank you very much. Now we have the pause, and at about 11 we go into the workshops, which end at 12:45. Then we have the lunch, and I still ask the person who have a blue badge to go to the restaurant downstairs in the ground hall. And then this afternoon, this will be final evaluation of the Congress and final and closure ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I will be leaving you.
Yes.
Now.